Hello and welcome to Pitch Bleak, the true creative crime podcast, where we interview some of Australia's finest artists to discuss the untimely, suspicious death of their ideas. I am Hayden Bevis, and with me is my pal, Chris Kennett.
Thank you, Hayden. Really looking forward to this one. We're going to be speaking to Katy Warner, author, playwright, actress. She's a triple threat.
That will be coming on soon, but first, Chris, before we get into that, can I hit you with a quick pitch? This pitch,
Yep.
It's a sequel to a well-known movie.
Okay, so already there's legal issues.
Yeah. Name one.
You do not own the rights. I've already got Disney on the phone. It might not even be their property, but they're ready.
Okay.
They're on the conference call.
You know when you think of a name before you think of an idea?
I've heard of it happen.
This idea is that.
Okay.
But
Yep.
working backwards, it kind of works. But I'm going to hit you with it. You ready? I'll hit you with the name first.
There's another segment. It kind of works. All right.
Would you go and see the Two-Rooman Show? Now, hear me out. It is the sequel to the Truman Show.
Oh, really?
Okay.
Is that what it is?
But it is. The Truman Show explores what happened to Truman Burbank once he left that sphere. What was that? When he entered the real world, like what happened from then on?
The Ed Harris sphere.
Yes. He left the Ed Harris sphere
Yep.
and he walked into the real world from then on.
Oh, I've got a lot of questions already. In the first movie, The Truman Show, which is now a prequel to your film, we got just a couple of little glimpses of the real world, didn't
Yes,
we? Like
yes.
a couple of glimpses of the audience, people
The audience
watching at
watching.
home, whatever.
Yes.
And from memory, and I guess inevitably by comparison, because the world they were creating for Truman was so picture perfect and lovely, the real world looked really grim and depressing from memory.
Well, in a way, I mean, they went to a bar. Like there was a bar. There was one where it was at the Truman Show bar where people would watch it. There was also like a guy who watched in the bath. I mean, that's not really grim, but it's just a guy in a bath.
I think maybe just by contrast, it was a bit disgusting, the fact that there were all these people just hanging on
it was,
what this one guy was doing. It was really laying bare the voyeurism of it. And so that was kind of gross.
Yeah, definitely. So then, okay, put Truman in that. Now what? Okay, has it got legs? Like, how long are we going to talk about this? 'Cause
here's the key question, and I think I know the answer. You've put a 2 in the name, haven't you? Like it's the 2.
Yeah.
Numeral 2.
I realise this is an audio.
RUMAN.
I thought I tried to emphasise that.
Yes. So it's written, it's going to look like the Sruman Show or the Zruman Show.
What about if it's not the number and you just wrote TWO in a different font?
The
Two-Rooman
Show.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to get on the phone with whoever owns that one.
But okay, name aside, I actually don't mind that as like I wouldn't
It's
mind
actually pretty cool. I think you've got to think about it's been a long time since Truman Show. When was that? Was it late 90s?
95, 96?
Gee,
something.
was it? Gee whiz.
97,
So
98,
you've got a big time gap.
Yes.
Unless you're going to de-age Jim Carrey.
I am.
Okay.
I was thinking
What about
de-aging.
Ed Harris? He's not dead, is he?
No, but Ed Harris kind of looks the same. And he wore a Kangol hat backwards. So, like, that is timeless.
He's got to come back. He has got to come back.
Ed Harris will be, what if they meet each other, like, for the first time?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
See,
Okay,
I think it's got legs because I'm hooked. What if it's like a crossover with Ed TV? Truman versus Ed. Truman versus Ed 2V.
Like Predators versus Aliens.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
It's satisfying everyone. You know all those people crying out for a sequel to Ed TV? You know, you can't get on the internet anymore without, when Ed 2V. Hi, it's Chris from Pitch Bleak here with a quick note about this episode. It contains mentions of the former theatrical touring company Critical Stages, an organisation which was very sadly liquidated in October 2023.
Our episode, however, was recorded more than 12 months prior to this event. We hope that the story you're about to hear serves as a small taste of just how financially perilous and precarious Australia's theatre industry continues to be.
We're excited to have in the studio today a fantastic playwright. Originating in Perth and now residing in the great state of Tasmania, Katy Warner began her creative career writing plays for her siblings to perform in the backyard. Is that true?
It was the shed, but yes.
Oh.
The shed's in the backyard.
Okay. After moving to Melbourne from WA to chase the dream of being an actor, was that true?
It was.
Yes, I know that. Katy turned her attention to writing. Your first play, These Are the Isolate?
Correct.
Yes, and won the Best New Writing Award at Melbourne Fringe Festival. And one of your more recent writings, Appropriate, was shortlisted for the prestigious Griffin Award.
Thank you.
On top of this, Katy has just released her second young adult novel, Triple Threat, which is why you're in town at the moment. Please welcome to the Pitch Bleak studios to talk about an idea that didn't quite make it. It's Katy Warner.
Thank you. That's
Hi,
so
Katy.
nice.
Do you remember any of these plays that you did in the shed?
Yes, I wrote a version of Little Red Riding Hood and I played the big bad French wolf. I was a bit obsessed with France at the time, did a great accent. And yes.
Your version, the only difference that it was a French wolf?
Yeah, that was it. I could wear a beret.
Was the extent of the Frenchness is just that the wolf said le a lot?
Pretty much.
Le Little Red Riding Hood.
And had a little laugh. It was a character choice.
Your transition from acting to playwriting.
Yeah.
Why did you do that?
Oh, do you want the true story?
Oh, yeah, that's what. Well, we are here for.
Acting just wasn't very good for me. I found the rejection very hard for my mental health, and I wasn't very healthy as I was acting. I think I worried a lot about how I looked and my size, and it sort of manifested in unhealthy habits and ways. And I got really bad stage fright, actually. So with that play that you mentioned, These Are the Isolate, I wrote it and I performed in it, but I wrote it at a time in my life when, things weren't so great. And it was probably a way of dealing with some things in my life that weren't great. But then acting in that wasn't a very good idea, I don't think. And then it got a bit of hype at Fringe, and Fringe was small and it got a good buzz around it. And then we got to do another season of it at Theatre Works in a bigger venue with a real director came on board, and we had real sound and lighting design. And the stage fright I experienced doing that season of it was intense, and I'd never experienced it before. I literally couldn't speak the words that I'd written. I couldn't say them. It was really bizarre. Probably should have gone to therapy.
Wow. And you'd not experienced stage fright like that before?
No, I've been acting since I was about 13 years old, did a lot of amateur theatre growing up, and I'm an introvert and I am shy, but when I'm on stage, I think that's why I always loved acting, because I could be somebody else and it was somebody else's lines, and I think there was something about saying my own words and not having that distance, which I found really difficult.
So you have been a playwright now for 12 years.
Oh, yeah.
On the other side, how is it now? Like, are you enjoying being a playwright still, or is it?
Sometimes I find playwriting difficult. I spoke to someone that I did a playwriting course with a couple of years ago, and she just got in touch because she'd seen that I was writing a book, and she was really interested in how I was doing that, because she said, I'm moving away from playwriting because to get my play on, I have to rely on so many other people, whereas I think if I can just write a book, I can just write a book. I mean, well, that's a whole nother.
Just write a book.
Yeah, just write a book. I was like, well, good for you. Good. Yes, you write the book. But but it is true. Like as a playwright, it's so dependent on so many other people, so many pieces of a puzzle coming together to get your work on. When you're a playwright, your work is to be heard and seen, not read. So I can write as many plays as I can, but it doesn't mean anything until it's on the stage. It's not a play.
I think it's really interesting, because I think a lot of people would think, okay, well, you're writing a play, you're writing a book, you end up with a bunch of paper with words on it. What's the difference?
Mm-hmm.
But as you say, there is so much more in the translation of a script before it gets to an audience than from a book.
Yeah.
Once you've got the manuscript, it might get edited. It'll have a pretty cover put on it. But then essentially it's your words to their brains.
Yes.
Pretty directly. It's there. It is a complete work whether somebody sees it or not. But there is something integral to the artistry of playwriting. I'm telling you about playwriting. You're the playwright.
No, I love
I'm
that.
explaining it to you.
No, I love that. And the word playwright, I mean, this is wanky playwright talk, but I love this. I love that a playwright is WRIGHT because it comes from the same sort of word as shipwright. So it's to wrought a play, to make, build, create a play, not write. It just sounds like right. And I love that. And I think that's something to remember as well.
You wouldn't understand, Hayden.
I don't.
We're talking about high art here. This isn't your commercial television garbage. Theatre is a beautiful and ephemeral art form.
Yes.
But it is. And this is what is essentially special about theatre for me is that every instance of it, every single performance is unique.
Yep.
And simply being present for an audience in a way that they cannot be for other media is very special.
Now, this is a way in. Well, no, what we're actually here to discuss is actually the demise of one of your plays. Katy, can you please tell us the story of Grace from its inception right through to where it is now?
Well, Grace is a play I wrote for Red Stitch Actors Theatre, a lovely small theatre in St Kilda. And they have a fantastic program called the Ink program where they commission Australian playwrights to write a new Australian play for their ensemble. So they have an ensemble of actors and that's what's different about Red Stitch is they have a core group of actors and the plays are for them. So I was lucky enough to be part of the Ink program. It's taken a few years to get this play off the ground and to write it, but they're really supportive and it's a great program in that you have an outcome, your show will go on, but there's no deadline or timeline to that. It takes as long as it takes.
So Red Stitch, great outfit. They have a wonderful reputation.
Yes.
And they're running this competition. Is it something you had to enter?
You had to apply. You apply for it.
Yep.
And, like an application process where you pitch your idea and they choose, say, 5 people out of how many?
So in your case, did you already have the idea? How far into the life of this thing were you?
Oh, well, look, this is actually it's very interesting. I actually pitched a completely different play, which now doesn't exist. I just realised.
Wow.
Hang on.
This investigation
It's
just
a double
got
murder.
Dun, dun, dun. Quick, get some more red string for the crazy wall. So you had another play.
Yeah, yes.
Well, the pitch for a play, I presume you hadn't written it
Well,
yet.
actually, I had written it.
Jesus.
Most of it. It was pretty done.
More coffee.
Can we hear about that idea as well? What was that one?
It had. I liked it. It was called Tiny Little Pieces, and it was about. It's probably very cliche now that I think about it, but it was about sisters coming home because of the death of their mother, and they'd come back to the house to prepare for the funeral. Really, it was a sort of a family drama comedy.
Hang on, this isn't Grace. This is
No, that was Tiny Little Pieces. But you can see the kernel of the idea for Grace, which is an intergenerational grandma, daughter, granddaughter piece. So there was the kernel there. Red Stitch, God bless them, said, "We love the characters, but we don't really like the play. So can you just do something different?" So I did do something different, which was Grace.
Okay, so then you had to come up with a whole new thing.
I did. Yeah, I actually wrote them. Oh, this shows how ridiculous I am. I actually wrote them two plays. So I started writing Grace and then I started writing another play, which also now has sort of gone by the wayside.
Wow.
Because I chose Grace over the other piece that I was.
And the other one also same characters?
No, that one I streamlined it down, and I think it was still sisters, but they were sort of different, and it was doing like a time. I saw them in the 80s, the 90s, and the 2000s. I was doing like a time,
Okay, yep.
leap thing.
Same characters as the original.
They were similar characters
Similar.
to Tiny Little Pieces,
Okay.
yes. But Grace, the
Sisters.
characters were quite different. Grace is set in a hotel room in Copenhagen. The daughter's been nominated for the Hans Christian Andersen Award, which is a real award for international children's author. Not always held in Copenhagen though, so I sort of twisted it a little bit there. And she's taken her mother with her to celebrate this momentous occasion. She hasn't written anything new in 10 years, but she's she's a beloved children's author. And then they get to the hotel and an unexpected guest turns up who, it's not a spoiler, but it ends up being her estranged daughter who she actually gave up, I suppose, for want of a better word, to her sister as a young woman. So didn't bring up her daughter. So her daughter.
I would feel like that's a spoiler. If I'd gone to see your play and on the way in somebody was to go, by the way, her estranged daughter turns up there. She gave up to her sister. And I go, oh, bloody hell.
Well, it doesn't matter. It's never going to, no one's going to see it again. So it's fine. I can give you spoilers.
Like, is that in the first act? Was it a 2-act play? One act play?
No, one all the way. It just runs all the way through. About 90 minutes.
90.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's okay.
Yeah.
I was going to say kind of long for one act, but that's
no
That's okay.
interval. No interval. Can't let people run away.
Uncomfortable seats.
And they were happy with Grace. Like Red Stitch were like, this is it sort of thing.
Yeah, they were very supportive of that once. And this is the lovely thing about Red Stitch and Ella, their artistic director. We had a conversation about Tiny Little Pieces, and through that conversation she could see that I was really interested in this idea of women who decide not to have children and what that means. Because to me, I just kept thinking it's that one decision you can't take back if you do or if you don't. You can't take it back and you can't try one out and then decide, I'm going to go the other way. But I thought, well, what happened if you did? What happened if you did have a child and you were like, oh, actually, I'm not good at this, but my sister or someone else desperately wants to be. So it was sort of looking at that. And they were that was of interest to them. And people do tend to judge women who make that choice or that decision. I did a lot of research into women that do decide, that have their children and then do decide that I'm not a good mother. And it's interesting because fathers don't tend to get the same sort of look. Yeah, it's just it was just interesting, messy, murky kind of water to dive into. And
I'm hooked on Grace. This is a great story, right? Like, this is really good. It deserved to live.
Thanks, Hayden.
So Red Stitch, they love it.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to put it on.
Yes.
They perform it.
Yes.
How did that go?
Oh, beautifully. They got a fabulous director on board, Sarah Goods, who done work with MTC and is just beautiful, sublime, in-demand director. So I was incredibly excited, got a great cast together, fantastic designers on board, and we had a season in February this year, which went really well and was extended, sold out and had an extended season. We got great reviews. It did really well.
Feb this year, this is some pretty raw stuff.
It's still pretty close.
And you felt great at the end of it, how it was at that point?
I was over the moon. Look, I don't want to sound arrogant, but it is probably the best work I've done. It was the most robust writing I'd done. I felt like I really worked hard on it, but I had a really great team behind me to push me further with my writing than I had before. And I feel it's the most professional piece I'd ever written. And I was really happy with it, and the reviews were great, and the audience response was really strong and really special.
I'm not well versed in the world of theatre, so like for me is like that's it, done, and then you just move on to like do you
Goodbye. You just tear it up, set fire to it.
Like what is the life of a theatre? Like what is the life of a theatre show? What is the potential for it
in this country?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's a problem.
Hayden's a screen guy. He's a film dude. He thinks that's fine. I can make the thing and then it could be played any number of times.
Yeah,
it's infinite.
Yeah.
Yes.
It can be forever.
Yeah.
As can a book or something like that. But a theatre show, it's performed and then it's done. And then what happens?
then it's gone forever.
Unless,
And this was what was so exciting about doing Grace with Red Stitch, is that we were going to tour it. So we had a tour set up. We thought we were going to be going to Geelong and a couple of regional venues. That got put on hold because of COVID reasons, obviously.
was there always going to be a tour, or was it on the strength of this being such a success and so well received?
We were always going to tour to Geelong.
Okay.
As far as I know, we were always going to tour to Geelong and maybe one other regional Victorian venue.
And this was Red Stitch making this happen?
Yeah, so Red Stitch work with a third party. This is where it gets confusing.
Okay.
They work with I'll say their name, and they're wonderful. And I'm not
Okay.
no shade.
No, I know.
Oh, no, definitely
Look,
not.
we pin their name up on the wall. Doesn't mean anything. It's all part of the investigation.
All right, you can add the name Critical Stages. Now, they are fabulous. They're a presenting partner, I suppose, is the easiest way to describe them. And they will put a tour together. And there's lots of these organisations around Australia that get funding to put together tours of shows to take to regional venues to give the arts back and give you an opportunity.
Okay.
Yeah. So they were going to put together a tour. And I think, to answer your question, Chris, about was it on the strength of the reviews and whatnot, I think, and I could be wrong, but I think because the reviews and the response was so good, they thought that they'd be able to put together a bigger tour than what was originally suggested. Yeah.
And you're buzzing at this point, I'm guessing. Like, this is great.
Yeah.
This is great for you.
It's really exciting to think that your play will have another life. So having a tour is fantastic. I mean, financially, it's also very good. It's great for the actors, great for the designers. They all get paid again. I would have got some more money, and let's be honest, there's not a lot of money in it. So every little bit helps, you know. So I was very excited to think that it would be touring to Victoria and New South Wales, and Tasmania was on the cards.
Wow.
As well.
So how many shows are we talking? Like, what kind of life was being looked at here? Like, how many shows, how many venues?
I'm not entirely sure, but I know that we had 3 venues in Tasmania. So that would have been, let's just say, every venue does probably about 2 shows. And then I know that there would have been about 5 venues in Victoria. And then we were talking about 3 potentially in New South Wales, maybe more. I'm not entirely sure.
Wow.
So it does add up.
It's meaty.
Yeah.
So we're at a point where the tour is happening, and then when do you start realising that the tour is not happening?
Yes. So we had some dates set aside for a certain theatre, which I won't mention, in Sydney. And the dates were set aside and everyone gave their availability for this opportunity. And then slowly, and a few other dates as well, but slowly those dates fell away. And then we had this sort of holding on to this one opportunity, and it felt like everything was pinned on getting this one show up, because if you get this one show up, then it meant all the other venues would jump on board.
Yeah.
Because it does cost a lot to put a show back on, because you've got to pay for it to get re-rehearsed in, and you need that time. So this one company, we thought we had it, and then we were just told no. And I only got an email saying they've just said no, they can't make it work. No, that was the end of it.
When you say the date started falling away,
yeah.
What do you mean by
Smaller
that?
venues started pulling out of doing the show.
And what would they do? They just email and say, can't do it anymore?
Yeah, so they would talk to Critical Stages and just say, we want a comedy, really. I mean, this is what I've heard, and maybe they're just being very kind. They wanted a comedy, a bums on seats,
Did they think they were getting a comedy?
Well,
and then somebody's giving them the script and going, hang on.
I know.
There's no banana peels in this.
But
where are the songs?
You do write comedy in your stuff.
And I know, look, they tried so hard to save it. They did. I mean, they tell me they did, and I believe them. They've got no reason to lie to me. But they said, it has comedic moments. It's not heavy. There are heavy themes, and it makes people think and might challenge your audience. But they said, no, we just want something light and fun.
What does that look like, though? What does light and fun for regional look like? Is it? And I'm like, are we talking about
play Baby Elephant Walk as the audience comes in or something? Get them.
Is that kind of the vibe? Like,
I feel like it's really limiting what audiences want and what they think they can handle. I think it's quite patronising, isn't it, to say, well, you're a regional audience, so you just want Mamma Mia. Or I feel like any audience would get something out of the show.
This idea that we want a comedy, audiences want comedy right now. Was it a COVID-related thing?
I think it's COVID.
Everybody's bummed out. We just want people want to have a night out and they want to have a laugh and they don't want to think about it.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to think, Katie.
Don't make them
Stop
think.
making me think.
And they want something they know. I think that could be part of it too. Like, who am I? No one knows who I am. But if they could see Singing in the Rain, there's a name that we know. That's fun. We've seen that before. Let's see it again. Wedding Singer. I don't know, those sort of things.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's really frustrating.
It is frustrating.
Okay, so just to get it clear for me, you're not doing the corresponding. You're not negotiating with anybody. You're just getting reports back from Critical Stages or Red Stitch or somebody. They're telling you, Katie, this is what's happening.
Yes. Yeah.
So you're hands off the wheel to start with.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing was that the original plan was you were going to go to Tasmania. We're going to have Victorian shows go down to Geelong, and you've talked about these Sydney venues falling over. But what about the rest of it?
Yeah, I think if one falls over, they all sort of fall like dominoes. So once one goes, then they need to share the expense around. So the more venues you can get on board, the better, because then they can all share the price of a remount. So they can all share it out. So if you get lots of venues, it's not as expensive for them.
It's a house of cards. Somebody's trying to construct okay, all of these have to be in place for any of them to work.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, putting a tour together it's intense. It's a lot of work and they do an amazing job, but obviously sometimes it just doesn't work.
It sounds like there's a lot of energy that goes into getting a play up that I'm not as – like I could make something myself. Like I could just turn up like we have now. Like here's a podcast, press record. But theatre is on I probably don't understand the scale of this, to be honest, and this – this is confronting for me. It's like, well, it must look like a big mound of work that needs to be done. And if we can't all push it, then...
It's not just making a TikTok, Hayden. Have you considered making it into a TikTok?
Maybe I should actually. That could be the way forward.
Just condensing this, full, rich piece of theatre into a 17-second clip.
With a dance.
With captions. Yeah.
So the companies like Lab Kelpie and Critical Stages, they understand the level of work they must be really
Oh, they're very hardworking.
Yeah.
And very underpaid and under-resourced, and they're doing their bit. But the arts and particularly the performing arts has been so decimated over the years that the funding's really broken down and, it's just a bit of a mess and they're, working on nothing a lot of the time, on a bit of a shoestring. They get funding, but it's not enough. It's just not enough.
It's not rivers of gold.
No.
So how recent is this now? Because if this original production was in February, it can't have been that long ago that you found out this was not happening.
I think it was probably only probably a month ago I found out.
This is raw.
It's pretty raw.
Okay.
So, so honestly, how do you feel about Are you okay?
I feel bad about this.
No. I'm okay, but I think it feels like a breakup when you just don't know why. What did I do wrong? Because you just never really know if it was something you did or something you said, or they're just starting to ghost you now.
So, so that last theatre that pulled out, the big one that shall not be named, is that?
Yeah, I won't.
That's fine.
Yeah.
The big one, once they said no, it all just dissipated and everyone was sort of left holding nothing.
Yeah, because and that was what was really disappointing is I really had my heart. We all sort of had our hearts set on that would have been quite a moment, I think, if we'd managed to get that particular place on board. And I think the fact that we didn't really get an answer either, and even Red Stitch don't really know why. Yeah, and it's that not knowing why. And look, this is the other thing I think as well with theatre, you become a little bit of a family, and it is really hard to say goodbye to your little makeshift family when you make theatre. You get quite close. You, it's this really warm, beautiful room, and then you've got to. I mean, I think sometimes you're happy to say goodbye, but in this case, they were just it was such a beautiful team, and I loved working with them all. That I think is that added sort of sadness that we also didn't really get to say goodbye because we thought we had this. We thought we had this next stage coming. So I feel like I haven't really processed it with them either. It just sort of, there were a couple of emails sent where people said, oh, well, a beautiful email from the director just saying, well, I really enjoyed working with you all. So thank you. Oh. It's really sad.
And obviously critical stages move on, Red Stitch move on, you move on. And that's just like,
I need to move on.
Yeah, okay.
They've all moved on.
It's just you.
It's just me.
Hanging on.
Yeah.
Well, that is the story of the demise of Grace. We are now going to conduct a post-mortem and try and figure out why.
Oh, gosh, good, okay.
Do you think it deserved to die? In a way, like...
Oh, my God, Hayden. Oh.
Like, sorry, this is tough.
We realise this is difficult.
This is difficult.
Yeah, I don't think it does.
It hadn't reached the end of its natural lifespan. You feel there was a lot of life left in this.
Yes.
In the old girl.
Yeah.
I'm going to take out my question.
Oh.
No, don't take it out. It's a good question.
Well, it seemed like harder than it like.
No, because it's a good question.
Because look, some things do, they reach their end naturally, and there's no further for them to go. It was a terrible question.
Might add, it was your question.
No, it's a good question because I think, maybe on one hand it did deserve to die because if it's not what the regional venues wanted, if they, in this post-COVID world, they want comedy and they want something light and I wasn't delivering that, then probably, there is that way of looking at it too.
On the other hand, maybe the rubes should just get in there and get what's good for them. Learn something.
Well, on that, like, could you have done it differently, or would you have that in your mind now going forward? You would be like, I want this to regionally tour. I'm going to make it more comedic, or
would you compromise?
Yeah, would you?
Your art.
100%.
Wow.
No, I would write. I mean, I am going to write a comedy now. My next one will be a comedy because if that's what people want.
Is that directly in reaction to what happened?
Yeah, probably.
Wow.
Yeah. But also I think maybe also for my own sense that I just want to see if I can. Also, I just want to test myself. And I've written comedies in the past and I've enjoyed it. And I'm like, yeah, I'll give it another shot. I'll give it a go. If that's what they want, let's test it and see if it is what they want.
Here you go, you grubs.
Yeah.
This is what you wanted.
Take it. That sounded bad.
And you introduce every performance. You disgust me. Is this what you want? Are you not entertained? Do you have more insulting questions, Hayden?
Yeah, I do. Who can we blame? I want to point the finger.
Yeah.
Can we point the finger? Are we just going to point it at, like, I don't necessarily think I want to blame the regional audiences. Like, how do we even know that that's what they want? Like,
blaming the audience is it's a very tempting, but usually
I'm just saying
counterproductive.
The people who have said no, like,
yeah, but they're not the audience. They're speaking on behalf of the imagined audience, whereas we in this room know that any of these lovely, wholesome, simple country folk that become simpler every time I mention them, as soon as they were exposed to this wonderful piece of art, would, of course, immediately realise this is exactly what I want. I'm nourished.
Put that on the poster.
And so,
well, that doesn't.
So it's hard not to make our prime suspect, well, my prime suspect for the murder of Grace, this unnamed Sydney theatre company.
Well, there's only like three Sydney theatres, aren't there? It was that Bell guy, whoever he is.
Yeah, just blame him.
John Bell?
Otherwise, we blame the audience. That's your take.
I don't want to, but
do we
like,
blame-
I feel like the finger's been pointed at the audience like this is what they actually want. But I don't want I give them more credit than that.
Or do we blame COVID?
Oh.
Because that's easy also.
Died of COVID.
You know, was it just the
well, they'll put that on any death certificate now, won't they? Died of COVID or with COVID? Interesting.
Well, okay, then who is the gatekeeper? Like it has to be the theatre, right? Like is that
Oh, look, and that's a whole nother conversation though about the tastemakers
Yes,
and
who?
these gatekeepers. Who are they? The
are the
programmers that decide.
Yes. Who chooses the programmers? Sorry, who
Yeah.
are the programmers?
Well, yeah.
Okay.
Who chooses are the choosers.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's the thing, it all comes down to that. Yeah.
So, okay, we've examined the role of this unnamed body. You pointed the finger at a few people, Hayden, the audience, Katy.
Yeah.
Wow. Rough.
When did
Bad
they
cop.
Oh my
Do you
God.
think, Katy, there's anything more that your allies in Red Stitch and Critical Stages could have done? Do you think that, or to your knowledge, did they do everything possible to keep Grace alive?
To my knowledge, I feel that they did everything they could to keep it alive. They were very supportive and I think as
Do you think we can
devastated.
clear them of
I think we
suspicion?
can clear them.
There
Yeah.
wasn't no jealous types in the organisation who want out to get you?
No one tried
Did
to
you
push
make any
me down the
enemies?
stairs. I hope not. Probably. I don't think so. Oh, God.
All right. So, boy, we've got quite a list of suspects still.
Well, to avoid blacklisting all three of us from the theatre world, we'll just blame it on COVID. Right?
Yeah.
All right.
I'll just say COVID.
Died with COVID.
Died with COVID. And dumb shit regional people.
I'm one of those people now.
I know. You know.
I think it is probably my fault because I wrote it in the first place.
We are coming now towards the end of the actual podcast itself. And now you have an opportunity, if you want, we can stage a funeral for Grace where we can let go of the idea. But this is the thing. It can live, right?
I mean, that version of it version of it has gone. That version's done. So it might live again in another place,
Okay.
different actors, different director. Hopefully it will.
Yeah.
I think as a playwright, your work goes on and off. Hopefully it goes on and off. Versions of my play have been done in other places I've never seen and I don't know what they've done to them, which is fine. No, it's great actually. But I don't know, it's just you're not part of it anymore. And I think, I've just got to come to terms with I'm not part of it anymore.
Okay. The opportunity you have is like any of these buttons on the panel here
Oh, yeah.
will signify the end. And you can just press any of them at any time and we can say goodbye to Grace. And that will be the symbol of Grace farewell.
Do I press the button or
You
do I
do.
choose
It
the
has to be
cover?
your act.
A solemn moment.
Oh, that was magical.
Did you see that? Little golden stars just went everywhere.
I
Just
feel better.
went off to
There you go.
Valhalla.
I feel lighter.
Thank you very much for joining us, Katy. You're in town because you're launching Triple Threat, your book.
Triple Threat is available at all good bookstores and Big W.
And that was our chat with Katy Warner. Thoughts, Chris?
Wow, so many suspects. A brutal crime. Did we nail the killer? I'm not sure. You pointed a lot of bloody fingers.
I was trying to figure it out, though. It's a world I don't really know.
It is a mysterious and horrible world of skullduggery, the theatre. We may never know the true culprit of who killed Katy Warner's play, Grace.
Well, that version of it, I'm going to back in that it's going to come back in some form with an extra leg or something.
And if it does, we'll have Katy back because she was a wonderful guest. Tune in next time.
Yes. Do we have a catchphrase yet or are we not? Keep on trucking? Are you going to stick with that or not?
Hayden.
this is what's on the next pitch, Bleak.
Probably hear by Friday. Tuesday, no, I'm never going to hear from them. It's classic after what you think's a really good date, never hearing from them again. Occasionally you get surprised. They go, oh, sorry, we just got really busy and we'd love to call you back. So really? Like that was 9 weeks ago. What have you been doing?